What if there was a way to get everything that you wanted out of life? The short answer, it's called communication. I submit to you in 2025, the highest leverage activity someone can do is learn to communicate. And the reason I know this is because I struggled with communication and I've sucked at communication my whole life. And it's currently the number one thing I'm working on and working through that I'm seeing incredible positive results, incredible positive change through. Learning to communicate will be the single biggest thing that you can learn to do because everything in your life depends on it. Your relationship with your spouse, hitting your sales goals, client retention, having a productive team, anything in your business, anything in your life, anything in your job rises or falls on your ability to communicate and your ability to communicate effectively. See, the greatest myth of communication is thinking that it actually happened. There's a really funny story about a husband and wife. The wife starts cooking a ham, and the husband comes up and he says, "Honey, why are you cutting the ends off the ham?" And she says, "Well, I don't know. That's just what my mother always did." And so he calls his stepmom and says, "Hey, why do we cut the ends off the ham?" And she said, "I don't know. That's just what my mom always did." So he calls the grandma and says, "Hey, why do we cut the ends off the ham?" And the grandma says, "Well, the reason we cut the ends off the ham is my pan was too short and the ham wouldn't fit unless I cut the ends off." And that is the perfect illustration of how we communicate, or how our lack of communication permeates and exists through our businesses and through our lives, is because we think that it happens and the wrong action or the wrong inaction now takes place and becomes anchored into our business, into our life, and we wonder why we are not getting the results that we want. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the 3 biggest communication mistakes that are holding you back and how to move forward in learning how to communicate in what I'm learning right now. Communication mistake number 1, the reason that you can't effectively communicate is because you can't effectively think. If you want to be able to communicate effectively, if you want to be able to make a difference with your communication and ultimately get what you want out of life, you have to learn how to think. Now, I know that might sound harsh, but the reality is most of our thoughts, most of what we think on a daily basis are the same thoughts that we had yesterday. We live in such a busy time, such a fast-paced environment, that we are not taking the time to actually think about the message that we want to communicate. See, the right information leads to action. The wrong information will also lead to an action, just not the action that you want. Your team doesn't operate effectively because you are not communicating effectively. And so what they're doing is they're acting on their lack of information that they have received, or they're acting on the information that they think they have heard. Communication is only 7% words. And so if we're relying on that 7% to get our message across effectively, it should be a really intentional 7%. And sadly, most people are not taking the time to think, what is this message I'm trying to get across? Like this video, the message that I tried to get across, the ideation, taking the time to ideate and think and work through what I wanted to communicate took a lot longer than it did to film this video. Myron Golden puts it this way: ideation is the most important process of public speaking, because if you get the ideation wrong, nothing else matters. And sadly, we are too focused, too busy, too distracted, and we are not taking the time to think about the message it is that we want to get across. So if you want to communicate effectively, you need to start thinking about the messages that you want to get across, whether that's on a daily basis in your Slack channels, whether that's through text message, whether that's through videos like this, whatever the medium you are using to communicate, you need to start thinking about the messages that you want to get across, and not just spewing words out, not just saying whatever comes to mind, but really being intentional behind what it is that you're saying. So back to the thinking, because we don't think on a daily basis, we don't take the time to sit with our thoughts, whether that's a weekly time, whether that's a daily time, but sitting with your thoughts and starting to think and actually create depth. Because you don't create depth in an instant. It takes time. You have to cultivate, you have to prune, you have to get rid of the things that don't make sense, and you have to add things that support, whether that's a quote, whether that's a reference. Just, you have to build and take the time to think and write it out and ideate, whether that's on a Google Doc, whether that's handwritten. You have to take the time to cultivate and really dig deep the message that you're gonna try and speak and try and come across. There's a lot of communicators that just because they talk, they think they're getting a message across, which again, the right information will lead to action or it'll lead to inaction. And so they wonder why lives are not being changed, why their team is not moving forward, why clients aren't sticking around, why sales don't close. But it's because the communication, again, the biggest myth is thinking that it happens. So just because you're saying words, just because you're talking, doesn't mean communication is actually happening. It means words are coming out of your mouth, but it doesn't mean there's effective communication. So in order to communicate effectively, in order to move forward, you got to take the time to cultivate depth of ideas, and what is the intention that you want to get across. If you have an intentional message for your team and what you're trying to cultivate, and then you dig and add depth, you add to that idea, and you make that idea crystal clear, that's where your team is going to start to move forward effectively. That's where they're going to take what you said and actually understand what you meant by it, not just the words that you said. So again, number one is taking the time to think your idea out and taking the time to really ideate and spend time building the idea from the ground up. Number two, you're distracted. We live, again, in a busy time, busier than ever, in the fastest, technology is moving faster than ever. Matter of fact, on communication, it's important that we learn to communicate, because AI is a tool that we communicate with. You sit on ChatGPT, you sit on Claude, Gemini, whatever LLM of choice is, and you wonder why your prompts suck and you're getting terrible output, but it's because the prompts suck. It's because you're not communicating. You're saying, ChatGPT, make this great, and giving the most broad, ineffective prompts that are ultimately giving you crappy output. And so taking the time to think, okay, what am I trying to get across, is ultimately the game changer. And so back to number two, we live in the distracted time with technology moving faster than ever, social media algorithms, dopamine overloads, social media reels just going crazy, that we are so distracted that we can't follow number one. We don't take the time to think. But even in conversation, even in communication, we are lost. Like, I don't know if you've ever talked to someone who's been distracted, or even you've been that person distracted. They're scrolling on their phone or whatever, but not only do you not know what they're saying, but they don't know what they're saying. And then after the conversation is over, it's like, hey, what just happened? It's a blur. And we are living in a distracted blur of a society. So number two, if you want to learn to be an effective communicator, is to take the time to be present. Take the time to get off your phone, get off YouTube and stop watching this video, but sit and take the time to think and to focus, which again supports number one, where it's taking the time to think, taking the time to cultivate depth, but it's to eliminate the distractions and really spend the time focusing on what it is you're trying to communicate, what it is, who it is you're talking to, who's the demographic, who's the message for. But it's to eliminate distractions and make that person or that team or that message the number one priority. And then finally, number three, which is a direct result of number two, and that's listening. The reason you can't communicate effectively is because you don't listen. if you don't take the time to listen to what your clients are saying, if you don't take the time to listen to what your team is saying, to what the market is saying, you will never communicate effectively because you're never going to be in touch with what is actually going on. Again, just because you talk a lot, just because you say a lot of words, does not mean communication is happening or happening effectively. You have to take the time to listen and say, okay, what's going on? And again, back to number one, okay, they said this, they said they're overworked. Well, why are they overworked? Okay, well, I haven't given them the effective tools. Okay, how can I give them more effective tools? Okay, let me think. What could I do to help equip them to use their tools more effectively? And you start to go through the process of, this is the feedback they gave me. This is the implementation I can use to help them move forward. And so ultimately, you can take what they said and you can turn it into a message to help them and to actually allow them to achieve what they want, whether that, again, is your team, whether that's your clients, whether that's on a sales call. The reason you can't sell is because you don't know what your prospect wants. You're trying to talk about your product, you're trying to talk about the features, but nobody cares about that. They want to know, how is this product going to help me? How is this feature going to help me? And it starts by knowing what they're trying to accomplish. What is their end goal? And then you take that and you make that message dynamic for them. I remember I was just at an event presenting some different technology, and people would come up to me and they'd say, hey, Bryce, can you show off the technology to this person? And I'd say, yeah, but I need to know about them. And so I wouldn't start until I would ask questions about this person that I'm talking to, because I need to tailor my message specifically to what it is that they want to accomplish. They need to know that our solution is the answer to what their problem is, but I don't know that until I can listen. And so I had to have a conversation with them. I said, hey, if you're going to bring people over to me, you have to tell me more about this customer. You have to tell me what it is they want, and ultimately give me the information that I can tailor this message to them, which again is a form of listening to what the client wants indirectly through my partners that were at that event. And so ultimately, listening and taking the time to hear what it is that's being said on the other side is number three, and going to help you in communication. And so combine all three of these. Take the time to ideate, take the time to sit with your thoughts and cultivate depth, and then stop getting distracted, and then listen for feedback. After you cultivate the idea, you stop getting distracted, you start speaking your message, you start communicating, you start telling your team what they need to do, giving them the right information to take the right action. Then see what the result of that action is, talk to them about the result of that action, and then take that feedback by listening, not in one ear out the other, but actually listening to what they have to say, and then tailoring another message specifically to them. And so I promise, if you take these three communication tips and implement them in your life, you're going to see massive change in 2025, just like I have these last 10 months.